What's going on, Chief Architect family? This video, I'm going to go over how you can create a tool to create showers where you can parametrically resize that shower, and that shower will save you so much time trying to design showers. It just will. And part of this is, well, I've become accustomed to showing my YouTube audience exactly how to create some of my more complex systems. And why am I doing that? Well, one, it's to follow this thought of, abundance, sharing my knowledge so that everybody can do exactly what I do, and that your creations somehow come back to me, and they come back to you, and they bounce off of each other to the point where we just as a community bring things forward in a way that's efficient and benefits all. There's plenty of room in this world for all of us and all of this information. So that's thought number one. Thought number two is I gotta make money somehow. So some of this stuff I have to sell, but that doesn't keep me from sharing with you how to make the things that I sell. So if you wanted to take the time to make them instead of buying them, you could. Why not? And so this video, I'm going to show you how to make a newer system that really only a number of people have. It's only sold a couple of times as an individual package, but it is included in my complete system, so people have the benefit of doing that if they have the complete system from the X17 versions on. And people that have used it really understand what it means to have it, right? And people that don't have it don't really understand the complexities of designing a shower in Chief Architect. Yes, you can do it. Yes, you could do it rather quickly, maybe an hour, maybe two. But there's a big difference between designing something in an hour and designing something in 5 minutes. So I'll show you the designing something in quickly using the tools that we already have access to, and then I'll show you how to just use a pre-configured tool, and then I'll show you how to try to make that pre-configured tool. So here we go. Let's get into this. So let me just, start drawing out what will become a shower, or rather, let's just start with something that's going to become a bathroom. So let me just put in some walls here, and I'll make this probably a typical bathroom size. And, granted, I'm in a remodel workflow right now, so it's going to be 4'11" in between the drywall, and then probably like sure, I think a 9'6" would be fine here. And so then we've got some kind of bathroom door, and so somewhere in here we've got some kind of shower, and maybe it's at the back end of this. And so a really simple configuration might be that we use what becomes a pony wall to create a curb. And so the inside dimension of this is one thing. It's really the outside dimension that I'd want to know about, right? And let me just, do some math in my head. I'm using a 4.5-inch interior wall, so I could say that I want this to be 32 minus 4.5. All right, and so that's going to be my overall shower. All right, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to designate in wall types panel here that there is a pony wall. And this pony wall could be something that I created, but I'm going to start with something that is like just interior 4. All right, and then I want to define this. And the definition of this is going to be that not only am I going to have some 1/2-inch surface on the interior side, but I'm also probably going to have some 1/8-inch surface that becomes my, my grout, my mortar, etc. Right? Same thing. Insert above, some kind of 1/8-inch surface. There we go. And let me just press OK. Now, what I didn't do by accident was that I didn't create a new wall type. So really, you want to pick that interior 4, copy it, and then, rename it tile 4 or something like that, okay? And then you would insert below, 1/8 inch, and maybe your tile is thinner than 1/2 inch, right? Maybe it's 3/8 of an inch. And does that even matter? We could have just left it the way it was, right? And so let me insert above. And I'm not even going to bother setting up to specify what this material is, right? Now, height off the floor. This is going to be the size of our curb in this case. So let me just say 4.5. And then the upper wall type is going to be what Chief Architect would call a glass shower. And then I would want to say that I want to align the pony wall at the wall center. And now that I have a pony wall, I'd want to put a wall cap in here. And you can use anything you like. I tend to just type in square because that usually finds me some kind of a square profile that can then just be resized here. And so I'm going to use the full wall width, okay? And then the height of which, let's just call it 1/2 inch. Right, and so that's going to automatically place at my pony wall top. And so there we go. Now the last thing I might have wanted to do in the wall types panel is that I might want to show upper wall and lower wall outline, or maybe I want upper wall outline and lower wall, etc. Probably be better with upper wall and lower wall outline in this case, and that's what it's going to look like right there. Not bad to start. And let's go pull a view. And I always want to check things in a ray trace view to see how this is looking, and just to get a semblance of size and configuration. Let's throw a toilet in there, and then we're going to pull some kind of ray trace view and take a look at what this is looking like. Okay, so here's what we have so far is some glass partition that goes all the way up, and then we've got a wall that creates a different room, mind you, all right? And obviously we have some casing in there, etc. Now, if we change this room type to something like bathroom, well, it's not going to necessarily remove moldings. So you almost have to make a custom room type where it's got no moldings, and maybe it even has a new surface area. And so look at this. This says there's no room moldings, and on top of that, I'm essentially faking a mortar bed in the structure panel by adjusting the floor finish assembly. And so here we go. I've got a 2-inch backer board is what I called it, but basically a big mortar bed with thin set mortar and some tile. And so that's raising the floor structure of this thing. Not floor structure, floor surface, mind you. So the floor structure stays intact. That means it's not going to break up any kind of joists running through this. So we've got this defined room. Now, what are the caveats of doing it in this method? Well, for one is if we pull a wall elevation to try to get the wall elevation in this bathroom where we're getting the toilet, vanity, etc., you're going to notice that this is clipped up into the point where that shower wall curb is. And so you would have to go and edit the active view, uncheck clip to room, and then adjust the side clipping to incorporate that shower. Not the end of the world, but it's just something to consider. Now, since I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and use the backsplash tool, because ultimately this is a better way to show tile on a wall than it is to just spray that new room. That new room is going to do exactly what this backsplash did, which was split to that glass wall. And so at least with a backsplash, I can kind of bring this forward and align it with a curb or extend it past that curb. And so now what are we looking at? Well, this is what it looks like in a 3D. Not bad. Now, if I try to select this, I've got a wall in a way. So I've got to navigate onto the interior side of this to be able to copy paste this, reflect about the center, get it on the other side, and maybe copy paste and reflect about the diagonal to get it on this back wall, right? And so this is not the worst workflow. This works, I can click on this dimension string and say 0 inch to just push that backsplash all the way to the side. And there we go. We've got the makings of what might look like a shower. Now here's something new to consider is, let's say that halfway through this wall, I want to put a break because I need a half wall because I've got this toilet here and I want to generate some kind of half wall. And can I just slide this up and have that half wall build and have that cap generate? Yeah, more or less, but look at what happens is we've got our interior main layer is showing through. So that's a bit problematic. Does that go away if we try a different approach? What if I were to open this wall type up? All right, and actually let me make a break in that wall again. So here we go, I've got this wall, I'm gonna make a break. I'm gonna select this half of it. I'm gonna open this object. And what am I gonna do? I'm gonna manually adjust this. So elevation of that wall type, let me set this to 42 inches. And let's go look at a view. And so look at this. This time it actually wraps. Now there is some issue with the wall cap. it's splitting for some reason, right? So it's causing a little bit of problems there. Now, the next thing that you could do is you could use the door tool, or more specifically, you could use the shower door tool. Now, I'm using a custom shower door tool that I built out. And the reason for this is that by default, my shower door is set to 4.5 inches off the bottom of the floor. If it were set to 0 inches, which is by default coming from Chief Architect, what would happen? Well, it's going to cut that. Look at that. It's cutting my curb down at the bottom there. So I would say, hey, if you want to use the built-in systems, go custom build out your shower door, put in the hardware that you want, and make sure that it's offset based on the curb that you're creating, all right? And so then the last thing that you could do is you could get into the wall defaults and double click your, activate your straight glass wall and double click it, and then set the defaults for this. And that's what I've done here is I've built out a shower curb. It's a single main layer assembly, all right? And it's set to 4.5 inches off the base. It's just got tile applied to it. There's a wall cap, there's a glass shower. That way, if I just draw with that from the beginning, so let me get rid of this wall and this wall. If I just draw from what I've created as a default in my template, now I'm just drawing with this wall assembly. So if we go look in a 3D view, this is what I'm drawing with, this is what I've got, right? And so then if I use that same default doorway and I go press that tool, activate it, place it, there we go. It's cutting perfectly into that assembly, all right? Now there's another consideration here. Oftentimes we don't have our glass going all the way to the ceiling, so that's something to think about. The other thing to think about is maybe you want something that looks like some kind of a partition with all the hardware, etc., and you want to place this in here. And in fact, it's going to, cut to that pony wall, right? So that's what I did. My default straight glass pony wall has a half of a wall with it. And so when I draw this out, it doesn't just overwrite that existing wall. What do I have to do? Well, I kind of have to get this door out of the way. Let me get that out of the way. For some reason, this wall is not, perfectly overwriting that other wall. Let me snap this. Let's look at 3D. What has that done? Well, hasn't done anything good in this case. I almost have to just delete that section, start from new. And what I'm going to do is start with that straight glass pony wall. And here's what it's going to look like. There we go. I've got a half wall in place. Now, keep in mind, one side is tile, the other side is tile. What if I want this outside to just be a continuation of the drywall? Can we do that? Yes. But please note, it's going to split that right down the middle. So we don't have a cap that goes on the vertical run of this if I wanted drywall on one side versus the other. So you're running into all of the reasons that it might be nice to build some kind of a versatile shower tool. It's not that you can't do this manually, it just takes a decent amount of time. So here we go with that in mind. And mind you, I spent 13 minutes on this. If I wanted to get this to be perfect, it might be another 10 minutes, 25 minutes, not the end of the world. Sure. That's only for this type of shower. This is a very simple and straightforward type of shower. What if we were to build a bunch of different showers to kind of handle every configuration that we could come up with? Enter in, let's build this out of some tool that is conducive to that scenario. All right, let me get rid of these shower walls. Okay. And I'm going to do the really rudimentary version of what has become my shower, pre-built showers. Go ahead and get rid of this backsplash. And because I'm going to show some pitfalls of this as well. Oh, I just can't seem to delete that backsplash. Let's just do it from a 3D view. There we go. Delete. All right, I'm going to get rid of that project browser. So enter in the very formidable cabinet tools, right? Cabinet tools are really formidable tools. And how do we want to do this? I'm thinking full height cabinet. I'll tell you the truth, I honestly can't remember what I started with. Okay, but let's open this up and show why this can be so dynamic. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the door drawer and I'm going to set all door panels to by default use slab doors, and I'm going to set door handles to use none, okay? Let me just set this all to use none. Here we go, all right? And then moldings, we're going to get rid of this molding, and we're going to get rid of the toe kick. So here's what this leaves us with, okay? Let's start by just doing a simple configuration where we change the right side to, if I just type in match M, that goes match front, okay? Next thing I want to do is in framed, my separation wants to be 0 because we're oftentimes going to have elements that we want a 0 gap on. And then if I use inset, this is going to make things join at the corner. That's something to consider. Now, I'd like you to keep in mind, I built the pre-built custom showers a year ago. I actually don't remember how I built them. So I'm just trying to recreate them from the thought that I know the capabilities of this cabinet. So what can we do to just recreate that, right? First thing is, we're going to say that this has no top. So we're going to get rid of that top, okay? Next thing, let's get to this front side configuration, and I know for a fact that I want something that is an opening, and we're going to specify manual 0 shelves. Why are we doing that? Because what happens is the cabinet gets to get resized, and the back side and maybe one other side will become a backsplash that gets to get parametrically resized, while we keep the front side and maybe one side be our glass walls that maybe we don't want to resize with the backsplash, making it really easy to resize the front side just by deleting what will become this opening, or making it really easy to resize the backsplash by resizing the cabinet, okay? And we'll get to why that makes sense here in a minute. And mind you, this was from coming up with a system. So you're getting saved the hours of all the kind of brain work that it required to come up with this system just by following along with this video, if you will. So my door right, I'm going to make this be, let's just call it 84 inches, okay? Or maybe it's even lower than that. Maybe we'll call it 74 inches. Why not? You know, you tell me what your glass partition size is going to be. The next thing is that I'm going to kind of fake a curb just to show you the concept of how this is built, right? How do we do that? Let's just, well, for one, we're going to take out door auto right. We want to specify that this is either door panel, door left, or door right, all right? So we're just going to say door left. Now I want to split this horizontal, and I get to say that this lower section just gets to be a door panel. Doesn't necessarily matter. And that lower section's height is going to be that 4.5 inches. Now, this overall didn't really help us out. Why is that? Because we don't get to specify the overall height of this assembly that we've just created, door left plus door panel below it. So what you could do instead is you could say that there's a layout horizontal, all right? And from that layout horizontal, there's going to be a layout vertical. So now we're going to split this horizontal. That becomes some layout vertical. So we get to get rid of that bottom curve. All right, we get to get rid of this bottom separation. Now we've got a layout vertical where we can, excuse me, this layout horizontal where we can lock the height of this by inputting the height. So the height is now locked. All right. Why is that impactful? Because when we resize the cabinet, it's locking the height of these elements here. So those are not getting resized, which means we get to lock this lower part at 4.5 inches. So we know now this is 4.5 inch curb. This is our upper panel. That's locked to the overall height of this horizontal stack. Okay. Next thing I want, this lower section, it's a thicker assembly. It's a curb, right? So we need to specify this. So we're going to specify appliance door drawer, and we're going to make the thickness of this 4.5 inches. Well, it just so happens to be that Chief Architect limits this to 4 inches in total. See this? See this thickness? 4 inches in total. That's as thick as you can make it. Unless unless, okay, unless you create a symbol that becomes a cabinet door. And so let's go take a look at how these were created. Let me kind of expand my library browser so we can see this. In my user catalog, underneath my main thing here, baths, pre-built showers and baths, okay? And so we've got a shower builder components where we've got shower builder walls. And let's just take a look at one of these, all right? Backside wall, we've got a split wall. Let me take a look at this split wall assembly. So here's where we have the opportunity to model something. And I believe I used solids for this, model something with solids. I was able to map different parts of this, right, by applying different materials to different parts. So we've got some kind of vertical run, and we've got some stretch planes in there. Those are universal cutting planes. That means we just duplicate the geometry right where that slice intersects the geometry. We just duplicate the profile of that geometry through that slice. And so what are we looking at here? Well, again, created with solids and then converted to a symbol category class of cabinet, door, drawer. Okay. Now, what's clever about this? Well, one, the material mapping is a big part of the system. By putting in these little caps and everything, and then setting our stretch zones, that means those caps don't get stretched and they remain there. And that means they can be mapped to different textures, meaning that we can paint the inside of a wall separately from the outside of the wall and have a true full cap wrap on the top and the vertical run. All right. And in fact, I believe some of these even stop at 4.5 inches where they might intercede with the curb so that that cap needs to return alongside of that curb. Okay. Now, another part of this is the origin offset. I want you to notice something. The Y position, the origin offset, is offset by the total assembly width. Okay. So it's offset in the positive Y direction. The Y, the absolute axis here where Y intersects Z and X is the point of origin. And so on the negative side of the Y would be the front face of a cabinet door. That's how Chief sees cabinet doors. So we're offsetting this Y position, okay? And why would we do that? Well, very specifically because look, these don't meet up at a corner. They don't meet up at the corner, so they needed to be offset in the Y so that they're pushed into this cabinet assembly. That's how this system is built. And very simply, the rest of this is just component based. Okay. Now, I'm not walking you through this step by step per se, but I'm giving you all the tools that you would need to recreate this. I want to tell you this is Thanksgiving 2025, Cyber Monday is tomorrow, and I do have this shower system on sale tomorrow. Let's go take a look at one of these pre-configured guys, and we'll show you exactly how it's put together. I'm going to switch to my kitchen and bath toolbar, and we'll drop in a couple of these and we'll take a look. So this is one that's pre-configured, and let me just pull these walls out of the way so we can really see this. Get this toilet out of the way, and we'll stick this more in the center of the room, and maybe we'll even put in some windows or something. Get some light in this room. And we'll get rid of this library. So here you go. This is just a cabinet, and we'll talk about why this approach is so fast and easy. I immediately know once I need a corner shower that I get to go pick this icon. I mean, I've got a series of icons here that represent different shower types. So I know I need a corner shower. This is the assembly I'm going to use. We talked earlier about kind of locking certain elements of this so that when we resize this, some elements get resized, others do not. Look what happens with this, okay? The backsplash in the back here and the side here raised up. What I want you to notice is that the glass wall assembly in the front did not. Okay. If I needed the glass wall assembly to raise up as well, what happens here is I'm going to select some item to get me to that front side face, and you're going to see that there's an opening here, and there's a layout horizontal that is locked. All I have to do is delete this opening, and what happens? Well, it creates a blank space because something is locked, okay? So, really what you need to do first, in this case, and it's a pretty simple process, is We just take this horizontal layout and we unlock it. We unlock it and we delete the opening. Look what happens. That glass gets turned up. If I rotate this and kind of select this bottom selectable face here, it's the same thing. Here's our layout vertical. Here's our opening there, that's all we're targeting really. And then everything else gets to get resized, right? So here's that door left, uncheck it, get rid of that opening, it expands, and now I have glass that goes all the way to the top. I want you to also notice parametrically this just gets resized in its width as well, and I have this door locked so that that door is always the same size. So we're considering a lot of things when we build out. Now something that's a little bit advanced is that I used the face tool in Chief Architect in order to create a truly sloping floor. And that sloping floor is added as a millwork category class. And why a millwork category class? Because it can be applied as a shelf. And so I have on my shower door, there is one specify shelves, spacing from previous is 0, and then we've got this symbol that has a negative Z value to push it below the height of the shower door. And so it's creating a sloping floor so that when we do cross-section cut through this, it actually shows slope, which is somewhat compelling in a system, right? And then on top of that, there's so many remappable surfaces that it's really, really easy to just paint your favorite tile or your spec tile onto this and get your shower in just a matter of minutes. Now, another aspect of this that's pretty cool, and this is just a feature of having cabinets, is let me open this up one more time. I'm going to get to the back side of this and I'm going to select a face here. Now, let's say that there is a niche and we just want to use the niche tool, right? So we're just going to make this backside face disappear, and instead we're going to use a backsplash. Now, there's a drawback to this. Let me just make this disappear for a second. All right, so instead of custom face, I'm just going to say none. I can't, because this cabinet is drawn all the way to the ceiling, I can't just use the backsplash tool and apply it in this view, okay? I can't just come in here, use backsplash tool, come in here and try to draw this out. It won't even draw. Why? Because this is a cabinet, it's just limiting our ability to draw behind that cabinet as it's touching the wall. But I can very easily draw square backsplash here and then center it up on this cabinet. And if we get, preview right, there we go. Now the backsplash is drawing inside of the cabinet, and it's easy enough for me to span this out, etc. Okay, so that's one part of this. Let's go back a few levels and get it to the point where we had something on that back wall coming from the cabinet itself. And what makes this kind of cool and impactful. There we go. So let me select this cabinet again. Let me open this up. I know it's hard to see while it's ray tracing. Let me pull this around to the back side. I'm going to take this back side. I'm going to split it horizontally. And this lower section, I'm going to specify that the thickness of this is 4 inches. And I want to show you what ends up happening. Look at this. It created a ledge. How cool is that? That's pretty neat. Now, this right side has a little bit of a gap on it. That just has to do with the fact that we've got, cabinet drawer overlay, something in this box consideration. We might just say that this is inset, clearance is 0, and we would get rid of that gap right away. All right, so out of the box, I made it so that it could be door drawer overlay, and that's just for some other features and considerations. But isn't that cool that we can suddenly have this shelf here? Now, something to think about and how this system specifically works. And mind you, this would be kind of a rare circumstance where that shelf drives all the way through, where we have to have a custom piece of glass that's cut around this. How do we get around that? Well, quite easily. Spin around this to the back. And we can obviously take this layout vertical, split it vertically, okay? Take the side that's up against that glass, say that the item width is 3 inches or something like that, and then let's just get rid of that lower section, which was the shelf. And so now, when we go look at this, should be, if I did that right, it should be that, yeah. Let me just cut this back a little bit more. This layout horizontal, we're going to say layout vertical on the back. We're going to say that this section is a little bit wider. It's layout vertical. Just call it 6 inches, something like that. And you'll see now, look at this. The backsplash is carrying through. The shelf is actually built to the inside of that glass wall. So you can see how this becomes dynamic. Let me spin around to that backside one more time. I'll show you one more thing you can do with this. That's pretty cool. Let me just split this vertical, and let me take one of the selections, split it vertical again, and the selection that's highlighted, split it horizontal, and the upper section that's highlighted, split it horizontal. And then this one little section here, I'm going to specify that it's back to default. And so what did I just do? Let's just open this up and take a look. Created a wall niche. Isn't that pretty wild? Right, now I need to still set the storage drawers back to, the box configuration back to an inlay. You know, we undid that, but isn't that pretty cool that we can just create a niche out of that pretty quickly? So you can see how dynamic these are. Let me switch to standard view so we can see this a little bit easier. And let me show you a couple of these other configured setups here where I'm building out different scenarios that you might run into. Let's see. I want to see if I can find one of my favorites. One of these isn't linked. What's my favorite? I have a favorite in here, but I'm not sure where it is. That's the one. Isn't that cool? Right? You resize this thing and guess what happens to the grids? They resize. Why? Well, because they are done from a very custom mapping. This is just a material. If we switched to a vector view, you would see that this is just a material. That's all it is. It's just a custom material. It's pretty cool. So it repeats itself, right? And so this is a pretty neat setup. You can see just how dynamic these can become just by splitting sections and being able to remap them. So that if I brought in my library browser and kind of shrunk this down a little bit, and let's just an RD tile, grab some tile from my system. It's really simple to just, click and spray and click and spray. So I can paint this in a plan painter scope mode, and there we go. That's painting all that same tile one finish here. Right? Just as easy as that. And you can see these edges are painted in some other material. Very quick and easy to be able to change these out. Same kind of thing as, you see that they all painted at the same time, but here we go, giving you the ability to have caps sprayed differently than the floor, sprayed differently than the outsides of these. And how do we create it? This was just a solid with another solid lined up with it, with another solid lined up here. So if we switch this to a vector view, you're going to see some of these intersecting lines like this, okay? But pretty neat how this is all built out. So you can do this just by creating solids, convert them to cabinet doors, set the Y offset so that they line up correctly. Same thing with kind of the glass partitions. It just needs a Y offset so that they line up correctly. And then a lot of my cabinet doors essentially have hardware. So if we go look at, let's go look at this kind of panel door here. All right, and notice that there's hardware included. How is that? If we get into specify appliance door hinges. We're just using door hinges. We're using the built-in tools to create all of this hardware. So that you've got door hinges attached to a door. Okay, it's as simple as that. And then it's just some guess and check to kind of figure out how this all jives with each other. The hinges themselves need offsets as well so that they place correctly with the offset doors that you generate. This is a really nice puzzle to try to figure out. It's a challenging one. I would call this, something for advanced users to figure out. Yeah. But this is the basis of how we create this. And so the main considerations when I was building out this system are, well, one is what are all the configurations that I use, in any given house. Oftentimes I might have this really tall partition wall here with a curb that extends back to a backsplash. Can we easily get rid of one whole side? Yes, we can. We can set it to none. Can we easily create some kind of stepping? Yes, we can. Can we easily create some kind of feature strip? Yes, we can. We saw that in one of these other elements. Let me just take this shower, for instance. Oops, I just painted the glass by accident. Let's take this one. Pre-configured half wall, cap running down the vertical, cap running on the horizontal. Let's spin this around just in a 3D view. It's very easy to select here. I'm going to split this horizontally and then split that upper section horizontally. I want to specify this. Let's call this, we're going to call this an 8-inch little feature strip. And then I'm going to specify this. Let's call this 52 inches. So I got 52 and 8. Those are locked, right? So I could just spin this around again. Same thing, split and split. 52. Right? And 8. You could do this with the backsplash tool and build those curbs out and do all that stuff manually. I don't find that this is all that slow. I feel like it's pretty quick. And if I need to resize it on the fly, that's where this system really shines. There's that 8-inch feature strip again. So what do I get to do with this? Well, I get to come in here. This is going to be a really awful looking thing. You can kind of see where the split is, but use the component tool, component scoping, and there we go. There's my really ugly feature strip. I'm good at making ugly showers. I tell you what, when I'm practicing, I'm really good at it. So with that feature strip, what can we do with that? What else can we do? How can we set this up to be conducive to something that's very quick? Obviously, we can split this up, create the wall niche, create some kind of step out, that kind of thing. It works quite well. You can even, end up creating a border tile very easily. It's the same kind of thing. Let's spin this around. Let's click on something here. Let's get to the layout vertical. We split this vertically. We take the other layout vertical. We don't need to change all the individual parts of this layout vertical. Instead, we're going to just change this to a door panel. Okay. Now that door panel gets to be an item width of 3 inches. And so this can be a border tile, believe it or not. Right. So I could just use the eyedrop tool. And this would be a poor excuse for border tile. Change to component scoping mode. There we go. That is our border tile. Now notice that the offset is there. That's because I'm not using the system-based panels that I had created this with, okay? And that means that the default, I could have updated this. The default door should have been that offset panel. How do I fix that? Well, I'm going to go find my library item that will fix that. So that left-hand side where I've got something here that is a door panel, need to make sure that this is coming from my library in this case. So that's the caveat of this system is you need to use the components that you built for this system. So here's my pre-built and standalone. Here's the components folder, and we've got things named in specific ways. Back or sidewall is all I need to use in this case. So there we go, and that's going to have that that offset that puts it back into place. All right. And now I get to create my little border tile. I can just paint like that. And then probably I would use the new interactive material editor in a component scoping mode, which makes a copy of the tile. And that makes it so that I can then just use the rotate handle. And while I'm rotating, I could hit tab or enter and say relative start 90 degrees. So that would be that border tile, and I can rescale it, etc. Right? So this is how we would do some more elaborate tile configuration pretty easily. Now, what happens when you get this all built out? What does this look like in a plan view? Well, my labels just indicate the overall size of this. So as we stretch this and change the size of this, it's going to change the update this. Am I okay with this? I'm actually okay with this, just the way that it is. Could I just draw some CAD lines around this to make this look more like a shower? Yes, I could. The other thing that I can do is if I've fully designed this out, I could convert the selected to symbol and make it as a fixture or maybe interior. And I don't need to show advanced options. And look at what it does. It converts it for me. The only thing that we're showing here is maybe I want to clean up these CAD lines. That means I just get to edit the CAD block, use the line tool, intersected mode. I can just select some things in an intersected mode and get rid of those lines, or say no line on this particular polyline, right? There we go. Last one there, just delete that. There we go. That looks exactly like a shower to me. We can just save that, save this instance of it, and that's how it would look in plan. Pretty good. The other great part about this is wall elevations just cut through this. We're not generating a room with this. If you want to generate a room, you could. How would you do that? Just use an invisible wall. Simple as that. So, pretty powerful workflow. Very, very fast. I'm finding that when I convert plans for people from PDF or from an architectural set where they're going to do the interior scope of a project, something like that, it used to be that I would never, ever try to recreate a shower, and I would leave that to them. Now I just throw this in there as a freebie, as a give me, and it just ups the value of my overall service. So they have the shower that they need to start with, and they'll come back and ask me, how do I do something with this? And I go, well, it's a cabinet. You can manipulate it. So it's pretty cool. I think I maybe should have done this as a live video. It would have been fun to get some interaction from people in an audience, but I wanted to throw this out here because, again, it's Cyber Monday and this thing's on for sale, and I think you should go pick it up. Thanks for watching, and I appreciate it.